As a farmer, you'll be used to planning ahead. And so you'll know that concern about environmental sustainability has prompted recent changes to New Zealand legislation. Changes that directly affect farmers. These days, councils are getting tough on enforcing the Resource Management Act and on issues such as nutrient management and effluent systems. So now here's the problem. A small percentage of farmers have a fully compliant effluent system. Most think their systems comply when they don't. And the remainder, well, to put it politely, they have been putting it off. Effluent and Irrigation Design have provided this DVD as a quick overview to help you decide if your effluent system is up to scratch. If you could take a really close look at your pasture, you'd see that soil is not a solid mass, but rather a jumble of lumps with tiny gaps between each piece. Some of these gaps hold air and others water. The roots of your pasture push into the soil looking to find both air and water from which they absorb nutrients. When the air-water balance is right, your pasture thrives, producing more dry matter for your herd and therefore increasing your milk production. This is the key to irrigation. Apply effluent when there is a soil moisture deficit so that the soil stores the effluent in the root zone, where the pasture can absorb the nutrients. Don't over-apply the effluent so that it sits on the surface or leaches past the root zone into the groundwater. Both these situations will get you into trouble. You want the effluent to stay in the root zone. Using best farm practice when applying effluent will save you thousands of dollars in fertilizer every year. It will stop any negative impact on the environment as well as keeping you compliant at all times. So, how do you know when you're getting it right? Let's look at the 6 key factors. You should be irrigating over sufficient area so the pasture can comfortably absorb the effluent without getting stressed. For the majority of soil types, the minimum interval between applications is 2 to 3 weeks. That's the minimum interval. The less time between applications, the more you stress the grass. And the more you stress the grass, the slower it grows. A clear sign you are over-applying effluent is finding drowned worms in your paddock, matting of fibre on the grass, and effluent puddles. Your soil type determines your application rate, or how fast you can irrigate. Sandy soils can soak up effluent faster than puggy clays, but the general rule is slower is better. Your application rate must be slower than your soil's absorption rate. As you irrigate, effluent that does not immediately soak into the ground is called ponding. Ponding is a big no-no and can attract instant fines or court action. Any surface water you can see after irrigating counts as ponding. Also, the more blinding or higher the solids content, the greater the risk of ponding and the greater the stress on the grass. And if that ponding runs away from the wetted area, it's called runoff. Avoid spraying near waterways, tracks that lead to waterways, drainage ditches, paddocks likely to flood, and paddocks that are pipe drained. Runoff will now routinely get you a substantial fine for each breach. Your irrigation method determines your application depth, or how long you irrigate each time. As the effluent soaks into the soil, it pushes the existing effluent deeper into the ground. Once you reach the point where the effluent is pushed past the ends of the roots, the nutrients in it are wasted. These nutrients will leach and can contaminate underground water sources. You should only apply nutrients to the depth of the root zone. During the rainy season, there's naturally more water in the soil, reducing the amount of effluent it can hold. If you can't spray your effluent on the pastures, what are you going to do with it? You have to store it. The higher the water holding capacity of your soil, the more storage you will need. Also, there might be times, like calving, when you're just too busy to irrigate. Many farmers find they need about 6 weeks storage. The key to good effluent design, to applying these 6 key factors so that your system complies, is to look at best farm practice. Because if you just design your effluent system to comply, it probably won't be best farm practice. But if your system is designed on best farm practice, then it will comply.
The main thing with effluent is to do it right at the beginning. Even if you have to borrow money to do the job, it must be done properly. So my advice is for any farmer, any share milker, please go out and get professional help. There's several companies out there, good companies, and they'll give you several plans, and it will actually work out cheaper at the end if you do that and source good information.
We were looking for a system that would give us the best on-farm practice we could get, and obviously it would make compliance with rules and whatnot easy. We have a feed pad, and the effluent from the dairy shed all goes into a tank. In that tank, it then gets pumped through a separator. The solids go out into a pile to be used for our maize paddocks. The liquid goes to a separate tank that's then irrigated via the sprinkler system onto the rest of the farm. We're applying the effluent so that we utilise the nutrients a lot better with regard to especially the nitrogen and the potassium over larger areas and at a lower application rate compared to what we had been doing with the travelling irrigator.
Basically, me as a contract milker, I'm liable for anything that happens on the farm that I work on. The system that we use needs to be fully controllable, I suppose. If we have excess rain, we can turn it off, or if we have heavy effluent days from the cows, we can do more runs or whatever, but it has to be quick and it has to be simple. Because I'm on a fine budget with my contracts, all my resources go into building my capital. I don't want to be spending money on a fine, basically. You know, that money I can use to promote my career.
Very important to have a really easy system. There's nothing more frustrating as having a system that's overloaded, breaking down. It's so frustrating for staff. It's bad enough having to shift irrigators every second or third day, but you must always think of the staff if you can. And the better job you do, the better everyone will do the job, and everyone's happy with the good results. You must have it done properly, and you must get good results out of it.
Here again are the 6 key points for a compliant system. You're applying over sufficient area to leave 2 to 3 weeks between applications. You're applying at the correct rate, slower than the soil can absorb. There's no ponding. There's no runoff. You are applying to the correct depth, no deeper than the root zone. You have sufficient storage for those times when you can't irrigate. Unless you can honestly tick all these boxes, your system is not compliant. Farmers whose system is not up to scratch are wasting thousands of dollars annually in fertiliser, vet bills, labour and suboptimal milk production. And that's not counting the ever-increasing risk of getting fined for non-compliance. So strive for best farm practice, otherwise you're throwing money away. Don't put it off, get it right. Make sure your effluent is doing you good by hitting the ground, not the fan.